Saturday night.
OK, that's all the sport for now, Chloe. See you in half an hour with more.
Thank you, Leah. Now, the police watchdog says the former singer Ian Watkins could have been arrested for child sex abuse nearly 4 years earlier if the South Wales force had investigated complaints against him. Let's get more on this from our correspondent in Cardiff, Mark Hutchins. So, Mark, just remind us about this case.
Well, it was a truly shocking case. Here we had a global rock star adored by millions who privately was carrying out the most appalling abuse. In fact, in the end, it was a drugs raid that led to his arrest, but really drugs offences were the very least of it. I remember being at his first court appearance in Magistrates Court, and what we didn't know then, but we do know now, is that there was this timeline of nearly 4 years of opportunities missed by police to get him in the dock rather sooner and to end what the judge who finally sentenced him to 29 years in jail called behaviour that was plumbing the depths of depravity. There were clanging alarm bells surrounding Ian Watkins. This IPCC report today highlights the fact that for so long the police turned a deaf ear to them.
So tell us more about these complaints. How many were there and what were they saying?
Well, I've got a copy of the report here, and it pinpoints what it calls major shortcomings in terms of the police investigation, if you can call it that, certainly for over a near 4-year period into Ian Watkins. The main complainant was Joanne Mjadzelics. Now, she went to police repeatedly. First of all, in 2008, she took, said she had on her mobile phone, she had a message from Ian Watkins saying he wanted to abuse children. Now, the report finds the police didn't look at that phone. They simply didn't believe Joanne Mjadzelics. They didn't think she was a credible witness. But in fact, there were 6 people who went to police with concerns about Ian Watkins, and this report finds that there were 8 reports, there were 3 intelligence logs, but actually 0 interviews with Ian Watkins. He wasn't arrested over that period, he wasn't questioned, he wasn't asked what he thought about the allegations. Let's hear now from the Commissioner who compiled today's report.
Bias, whether unconscious or conscious, has no place in modern policing. When someone comes forward with such a serious allegation, or indeed any allegation or report, it really shouldn't matter what they look like, who they are, what their lifestyle is, what they do. What's really important is what are they saying. And it's really important that's taken seriously and that some investigative work is done to see if there's any independent evidence to corroborate what they're saying.
So, Mark, what has been the police response to this?
Sorry, in a word, South Wales Police say that they didn't listen, they didn't properly investigate the complaints over that time, and that they are truly sorry. Now, there was one detective sergeant who faced a disciplinary hearing for gross misconduct. He was cleared at that hearing. Separately from this, there was also an IPCC report that came out last week into South Yorkshire Police, and that report criticised their inaction in terms of investigating Ian Watkins, because Joanne Mjadzelics went to them too, and that report found that there were 3 officers who would have faced disciplinary action at South Yorkshire. They would have, except that they've since retired, so they can't. And just going back to this report into South Wales Police, I'm just looking at the timeline of events, the summary of the complaints about him, and it says on various points, no action taken, no action taken, no action taken. Well, finally, the police did take action, but 4 years late.
Mark, thank you for updating us on that. Well, we can now speak to Michael Walkine QC. He defended Joanne Mjadzelics. Thank you ever so much for coming in. I know that Joanne didn't feel well enough to come and talk to us today, but I know you've spoken to her about this report. What's her reaction to it?
Degree of satisfaction. She's disappointed on a personal level. There's no apology to her. It's probably time for South Wales to respond with an apology which shows their integrity and to speak with grace about how they disregarded her. But it brings back these events, not as if she forgets them ever. Every day, she tells me, she cries for no obvious reason. Actually, the reasons are obvious. She was disregarded. She was someone who was defamed, written off as because of her less than conventional lifestyle. Maybe it wasn't a steady lifestyle.
She was a former sex worker?
Yes, she was a former sex worker, and so what? And she was wrongly accused during the trial of having been sectioned, mental health section. That wasn't true. And so to face a jury with a person who comes from that sort of background was difficult. Their starting point might also be to disbelieve her. But police, who had the opportunity to look for corroboration of her claims, didn't do anything. They didn't have the wit to examine her phone. On her phone was a text with a wish list of abuse from Ian Watkins.
Do you know why? Because she was in a sort of on-off relationship with Ian Watkins,
yes.
wasn't she? She'd got this text message from him, which, as you say, clearly outlined his desire to abuse children.
Yes.
She went to the police. Why didn't they look at that phone then?
She went to the police with a laptop. One police officer said that he or she wasn't qualified to examine a laptop. So whereas you and I can look at a laptop and be alarmed and at least interested when we see a picture of an underage child, he or she, I think it was a woman, wasn't interested enough because she wasn't qualified. So Joanne went back again and again and again, 4 times in all. So they didn't ask about her phone, but here was the laptop. And she said, I've got a picture that he sent me. They denied in due course that it was an underage child. It was a child of 4 or 5. During the trial, they claimed it was a child over the age of consent. They were wrong because Joanne didn't count for them.
In the report, it talks about, doesn't it, that they wanted to find the right type of complainant to come along. That's what the IPCC commissioner says, because of her unconventional lifestyle. Do you think this happens in other cases?
It must do. It must do. So in the same way that police now are told to really listen to young children who claim they've been abused by groups of men, what's the difference? So she comes from an unsteady background, not a conventional background. She's not posh. Actually, my interest in this case began when I saw, after Watkins' conviction, she was interviewed on television. She wasn't glorifying in the conviction. She was disturbed, and it was weighing on her. What could she have done more to stop people, to stop children being in danger? Well, she couldn't have done much more than going to that police station 4 times armed with a computer, emailing the Association of Chief Police Officers, and telling everyone. In fact, on one occasion, she said to people who had the care authorities had the duty to look after children, she said to them, if he does something again, it will be on your head, not mine. She was warning them. She was right. She was telling the truth from the start and all the way through. It's
interesting that the report says that he wasn't treated differently, Ian Watkins, because he was such an enormous star, because he was famous.
Yeah.
Do you believe that?
I don't accept that. I'm cautious about that. I don't think the report, I've had a quick look at it, I don't think the report mentions a memo that I used during the trial. From one police force to another, it said, he is a famous rock star, she is a former escort who's been sectioned. There's the comparison. It's called celebrity privilege. I know about that.
Thank you ever so much for coming in to speak to us today. Very grateful to you. Still to come, we'll be looking at